86 teams to go on my road to predict all 131 teams this college football offseason. We are moving on to the Louisville Cardinals, and this is a fairly interesting team moving into the 2022 college football season. They definitely return a lot of talent. They got a lot coming in, but they're losing a lot off this program as well. And this is a Louisville team that has kind of been on the up and down, and their coach at times has been said to be on the hot seat. However, after last season and the expectation coming into this year, that may not be the case. So can Louisville be one of the surprise teams in the ACC in 2022? Or will this team maybe even miss out on the postseason come 2022? So what's up, Tailgaters? My name is Tailgate Nate, and welcome to my channel. I'm predicting all 131 teams this college football offseason, and that means I'm doing your favorite team. So if that's not the Louisville Cardinals, please subscribe, ring the bell so you know when your favorite team gets uploaded. And for fans, for Louisville fans in this video, but for fans in general, you guys are going to know your favorite team a lot better than me. So if you feel like I missed something, you want to add something, anything of the sort, leave that in the comment section down below, and I'll be happy to read through with what you guys have to say. Louisville in 2022, they're my 7th ranked team in the ACC coming into this upcoming season. They were 6-6 in the regular season last year, 4-4 in conference play, with a bowl game loss this last season as well. So definitely a Louisville team that is starting to maybe prove itself in the ACC, right? And their hope, Cardinals fans are going to hope that that continues here in 2022. But all in all, this was a fairly solid team last year. They were in the top half offensively with around 450 yards per game, scoring around 32 points per game. Not a pretty solid stat line by all means. On the defensive side, they were in the bottom half of the AC, though. They allowed just over 400 yards per game with allowing exactly 27 points per game. So this is a pretty interesting team for the Louisville Cardinals coming in, and I could really see this team swing one way or the other. This could be one of the surprise teams in the conference that pulls off upset after upset and really gets things going. Or this could be a Louisville team that could be right back where they were last year. It all kind of depends on how things shake out. That head coach, of course, being Scott Satterfield. At times, he's been kind of talked about to maybe be a guy on the hot seat. But all in all, pretty solid team he's got coming back. Although we got to look at the talent that he has leaving first. So running back Hassan Hall is gone off of this team. And he's kind of an interesting story. Was thought of at one point to be one of the better running backs in the entire nation, and kind of just fell off from this offense. So last year, only 272 yards and a touchdown for him last season, but he has since transferred out of the program. Their best wide receiver, in my opinion, Tyler Harrell, an absolute speedster. He only had 18 catches last year, but 523 yards and 6 touchdowns. That's an average of almost 30 yards per catch. He's an absolute speedster as well, is gone off of this team, transferring over to Alabama. Jordan Watkins, also gone, was the second leading receiver on this team, had 529 yards and 4 touchdowns, as well as Justin Marshall, another guy in the wide receiver position, 322 yards and the touchdown for him last year. Lose all that production. On the defensive side of things, Tavarius Peterson, a defensive lineman, going to be gone. He had 25 tackles with 2 sacks last year. CJ Avery, Nick Keki, Jack Fago. Lots of talent leaving the linebacker position. CJ Avery was the leading tackler last year. Had 97 tackles, 5 passes defended. Quinterio Cole was the second leading tackler. Also had 6 passes defended and an interception for this team last year. And then Greedy Vance, also gone off of this defensive back group, 36 tackles and 7 passes defended for him last year. So all around, this is a Louisville team that, is losing a lot of pieces. But when you look at what they have coming back, there's no reason not to get excited for this Louisville team. One of the most dynamic playmakers in the entire country in Malik Cunningham is coming back. And listen to some of these numbers. 2,941 yards, 19 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. He definitely can have a bigger arm. And I think while he was close to having a 3,000-yard season last year, if he's going to do it, this is the year. A 3,000-yard season, absolutely a great possibility. Jalen Mitchell. Also, Malik Cunningham, though, was the lead rusher for this team last year. Listen to this stat line. 1,031 yards and 20 touchdowns on the ground for Malik Cunningham. Again, one of the most dynamic playmakers in the entire country. He was phenomenal for this Louisville team last year and wants to be even maybe a little bit more special in 2022. Otherwise, you have Tyon Evans transferring over from Tennessee, and then Jalen Mitchell coming back for this team. He had 722 yards and 5 touchdowns last year for the Louisville Cardinals. So definitely a guy there. They figure to be that number 1 running back. Tyon Evans, again, coming in, could push for that spot as well. In terms of the wide receiver position, you return Braden Smith. You return Braden Smith. You get D. Wiggins in. Tyler Hudson coming back for this team as well. But also returning their top target from the season ago. Tight end Marshawn Ford had 550 yards and 2 touchdowns for this team a season ago. So D. Wiggins, Tyler Hudson, a couple transfers coming in along with Braden Smith, as well as some freshmen, more experienced players here as well, that figure to prove to be a fairly solid wide receiver group for this Louisville team next year. But D. Wiggins, Tyler Hudson, definitely guys that can make an impact on this wide receiving group. Otherwise, lots of defensive talent. Yaya Diaby coming back for this team, had 1.5 sacks last year. Yasir Abdullah is coming back at the linebacker position, led the team with 10 sacks a season ago. Some other names I could throw in there: Mohamed Sanogo is a transfer coming in, and then lots of very, very talented defensive backs. Kendrick Duncan, Keetrell Clark, Chandler Jones, Jalen Alexander, among some other names you could throw in there as well. This overall, fairly talented Louisville team. A guy that I really like at the secondary is Keetrell Clark. Had 9 passes defended, 3 interceptions, along with 40 tackles from a season ago. Let's look at the Louisville schedule here, and man, are there some interesting games here on the schedule. So looking at non-conference first, you got a road game against Central Florida. And what an absolute classic of a game that was last year. I think it's going to be another very, very good game in 2022. That could be a game, though, that Louisville has got to watch out for. Going on the road to play UCF, definitely going to be a pretty tricky game. You also got to go on the road to play Kentucky at the end of the season, your rivalry game there. Kentucky figures to be pushing for a spot to maybe hope to maybe surprise some people and win the SEC East. They definitely have the talent to do so. The only problem standing in their way are the Georgia Bulldogs, but that figures to be another solid team in 2022. Otherwise, South Florida is another game in there that should be a win for Louisville. And then James Madison, who's making the jump from the FCS to the FBS this year, joining the Sun Belt Conference. Going to be an interesting game for Louisville there. Otherwise, when you get into conference play, you got road games against Syracuse, Boston College, Virginia, and Clemson. Home games against NC State, Wake Forest, Pitt, and Florida State. So let's jump into this Louisville schedule. And again, road games in non-conference. On the road against Kentucky, that's just flat out going to be a hard game for Louisville to win. Kentucky, I think, definitely has the better talent. Now, while Louisville could prove to be a fairly solid team this year, could be a surprise team this year as well. And while they may be able to contend with Kentucky for a quarter or two, I do really think Kentucky has got the better talent and should be able to win that game there. So I'm going to favor the Kentucky Wildcats there in that game, in the rivalry game here against Louisville. But Louisville can push that team. So that should be a fairly interesting game. UCF, though, on the road in the Bounce House. UCF, a team that, again, recent memory has shown, this is a very solid football team. So this is going to prove to be a pretty interesting game with UCF and Louisville. It was an absolute classic last year. Hope we get another one. And then when you look at their conference slate, you got to start off things tough on the road in the Carrier Dome against Syracuse. Not going to be an easy team to beat this year. They've got a lot of experience coming back and figure to be able to push for a spot in a bowl game in 2022. Otherwise, when you look at some of their other road games, I mean, on the road at Virginia, on the road at Boston College, nothing special. Yeah, they're going to be tricky, but absolutely winnable games. But on the road at Clemson, that's the big one in conference. Of course, everyone with Clemson in the ACC, Clemson's going to have a target on their back with whoever they play. But then when you look at some of the home games here, at home against Florida State, could be a tricky one there. And you get some of the better teams in the conference at home. Pitt, Wake Forest, NC State are all home games. So very interesting how the schedule plays out for the Louisville Cardinals. I don't do game-by-game predictions. I do a more percentage-based outlook, tell me predict the team's record. So if the game's in red, I just don't see a win in the game. If the game's in orange, I still don't see you winning, but hey, it's college football and upsets can happen. Yellow are your 50-50 or high upset potential games. Games in yellow-green are games that you should win, but watch out for team on the other side of the ball. And games in green are games that you're good to win. That South Florida game right there should be in that darker shade of green. I really don't see a way that Louisville loses that game to South Florida. So my apologies, that should be in green, as well as the game against James Madison. I think James Madison's going to go through some tricky phases, trying to jump from the FCS to the FBS level. So definitely a very interesting game that now that James Madison is an FBS team, but I still see Louisville being able to win that game there against James Madison. Overall, when you look as well at some of the games in orange, Clemson, Kentucky, the two games I have in orange. Because when you look at the home games here, Louisville's got a chance to pull off an upset against Pitt, against Wake Forest, against NC State. Now, when you look at this schedule, right, I do not think it is far-fetched at all for Louisville to start out the season 6-0. I mean, when you look, yes, going on the road to play in the bounce house is going to be tough, but it's a very winnable game, and Louisville won the game last year. And when you look at home against Florida State, another winnable game. That's a Florida State team that is trying to rebuild and reload and trying to even push for a spot in a bowl game this year. Going on the road to play Boston College and Virginia, those are two tricky games right there. But again, they're in yellow for a reason because they're winnable games. Boston College has got Phil Dracovic, Zay Flowers, Pat Garwo coming back. However, that's a Boston College team that has still got some things to work through and still has to prove to be healthy in 2022. Going on the road, very winnable game. Going on the road to Virginia, they got a new head coach trying to break them in. That's a winnable game there as well. So that first half of the schedule, all of it is winnable. And while there are a lot of tricky games there, Louisville going 6-0 doesn't seem impossible for that first half. However, the back half of the schedule definitely is much tougher. I mean, you get your bye week right in the center of the year, which is perfect for a schedule like this, because then you got to go, then you get Pitt at home, Wake Forest at home. A couple tough home games there. Then a pretty simple one with James Madison before you got to go on the road to play Clemson. Then at home against NC State, on the road to play Kentucky as well. Guys, it's not going to shock me if Louisville goes 6-0 through that front stretch and then 1-5 through that back stretch there as well. That's not what I'm predicting is going to happen, but I do have Louisville going 7-5 in 2022. On the road at the bounce house, that's a tricky game. We'll see what happens there. I do see them being able to win one of Pitt, Wake Forest, NC State at home. I do think they win one, if not two, of those games. I think going on the road to play Clemson and Kentucky, though, are going to be some tricky games. This is what I think is going to happen for Louisville. I think through their first 9 games, I think they're going to prove to be 7-2, and I think things are going to be going well in Louisville. And then those last 3 games, I think they're going to lose. I mean, at home against NC State, that's just a good team. On the road against Clemson, Kentucky, those are other good teams as well. But, again, like I've said, this could be a surprise team in the ACC with the dynamic playmaking of Malik Cunningham, some of the running backs they have, some of the playmakers they have coming in at the wide receiver position as well. I could see this team going 9-3 and possibly pushing teams like Clemson and Wake Forest for a shot in the ACC championship game. But all in all, I see Louisville having a pretty solid year at 7-5. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below, and be sure to like, comment, subscribe. Anything you can to help support the channel does mean a lot to me. And remember to play hard, but tailgate harder. I'll see all you guys in the next video. Goodbye.